so part of the image thing is like, I don't even know why I'm continuing to exist. Let me like hold this up to myself and be like, okay, this is why I continue to be like a valid person or something. But then that like doesn't feel satisfactory, and I have to put all my energy into keep reinforcing this picture. I'm special, or I'm valuable, or I'm lovable.
Sometimes it feels like being a 3 is like climbing up a downward escalator. And then if I'm not climbing, if I'm not constantly doing that, then I'm falling. I'm losing it.
The big hormone Enneagram.
I'm John Lekovich, 415, sexual self-pres, 458 trifix.
I'm David Gray, self-pres sexual, 9 with 1 wing, 974 trifix.
What up, it's Emeka. I'm an 8-wing 7, sexual self-pres with 854 fixes.
Hi, I'm Alexandra. I'm a social self-preservation 9-wing 1, 963 trifix.
Like and subscribe on Apple and Spotify, and leave us a review. If you want to support the show with a donation, you can find us on Venmo at Big Hormone and paypal.me/Big Hormone. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. So today we're talking about the shame of the heart center, but before we get into that, I'm going to hit you with the usual plugs. Buy John's Instincts book, The Instinctual Drives in the Enneagram. It's available on Amazon and wherever you buy books, and leave a review. John is leading a retreat to Egypt coming up in March of next year. For more information, go to egyptretreat.com. The Enneagram School. John and Josh have courses available at the enneagramschool.com. They just wrapped up the attachment support group that was led by Alexandra and Josh. John and Josh had a course about the developmental view of the centers, and there's an intro to the Enneagram course coming soon. You can sign up for their email address to stay up to date to what they're doing over there. And then if you haven't been typed by us and you're still on the fence about your typing, you can get typed by Enneagrammer at enneagrammer.com. And to understand what that typing means, you could join DAA Dark Arts Academy to learn about how to see and understand typing distinctions, how to become more dangerously perceptive and skilled at seeing types clearly. And you can find all this information at enneagrammer.com. Alexandra is the world's leading Enneagram and astrology expert. You can book a reading with her at her website, SaturnRuled9 9.com. She also has a YouTube page where she delves into reality TV shows like Love is Blind and makes Enneagram observations and analysis. And then David has his Trifix booklet available at Enneagrammer.com. It's got David's archetypal and razzle-dazzle descriptions and illustrations for each of the trifixes. It's available for $12 at Enneagrammer.com. We could continue the series, like the shame. We could do that.
Yeah, I'm good with shame.
All right.
We can bring on some shame. What are you guys feeling?
I'm trying to think if I have
or something else.
I have stuff locked and loaded for shame, so I'll have to just be inspired by you gentlemen.
It's only John that's locked and loaded for shame.
Locked and loaded for shame.
Yeah, we're all heart last.
Body types here.
Except John.
Yeah.
Heart lasts.
All right.
Yeah.
Cruel, ruthless
John's
people.
time to shine.
Shame.
Yeah, it feels like murky area.
It totally does, yeah. But how have we been doing this? It's been like rage in the body types, anxiety and fear in the head types.
Yeah.
Okay, so shame in the heart types.
Because I think the whole idea was just kind of uncovering, some 7s don't really see their anxiety, and 5, what's 5 anxiety, and then sort of like excavating what rage looks like for 9 and 1. We know what 8 rage is like, but shame is completely that's completely murky.
Well, that's interesting. One of the things that I was thinking about assertive types, or maybe at least the hexad assertive types, is that they're out of touch with their shame.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of not a very well thought out thought, but like I've watching a lot of hexad assertive types, 8s and 7s, it's kind of like I have the sense sometimes that they they intuit that they are acting against themselves in some way. And then, but what they'll do is they'll double down on X or Y, to kind of like overly declare, this is who I am, or this is what I'm doing, or this is what I want. And it'll almost be like they'll have times where they catch up with themselves. And usually it's like a big emotion. It can be like a big emotional thing, especially I've seen it in sevens where it's like all this backlog of feeling. And I'm not trying to equate shame and feeling, but it's sort of like the way that I have been separated from a feeling of me that actually feels important. I'm kind of like catching back up to it, but I see it in eights too, where it's like, it can be through sentimentality. It can be through also a kind of tearfulness. But it's sort of like, like I've been acting in this way and that way and this way, but I haven't been in touch with kind of like a certain cost it has on my relationship to myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the
It's
heart,
kind of vague.
not acknowledging or honoring their hearts.
Yeah,
partly.
so I guess like to kind of like as the heart type, shame is also something that is murky, and I think shame is not a great word for it in the similar way that like fear is not always a great word for the in the head center, or even anger is not always a great word in the body center, because like to connect, for example, dissociation to anger, or it's like it doesn't, it takes a while to get a sense of that. And so one of the things I've been writing those descriptions that I sent you guys in the chat and trying to understand the relationship of identity to the heart types, including shame. And there's a kind of a contradictory thing, I think, with the heart, where there's a sense that I'm not sure if it's a felt sense that our identity is special, or if it's like a need for our identity to be special. But it's like in the heart center, and I mean heart types, but also like our heart fixes, no matter what they are. There's a certain way that it's like who I am. It's contradictorily both it is or needs to be special, and also I'm not sure if anybody else knows or sees it as special. And so there's a lot of defense of my identity because it does feel like it's special, and also defense of my identity because I don't want to be triggered into feeling like it is not also valued by you if I think you're an important person to me. And so it's this kind of it's this weird thing where on one hand there's an enormous sense of all the things we use with heart types, like lovableness and worthiness and value and specialness and something very personal. And there's this kind of creeping sort of anxiety in it but maybe it's not any of those things at all either. Like maybe it doesn't have any of those things. And so like, you think of, for example, like a baby, and they're just themselves, and there's this natural sense of preciousness. And it's like, do we all actually have that preciousness? And then if we do we lose it at a certain point if we don't do something about it? Like you become 10 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old. Do you still have that preciousness, or is there some way that preciousness, and I'm using that, it's not a good word, but that value, that whatever it is there something that we have to do to keep that experience happening? That there's something like, oh, you're inherently valuable, you're inherently worthy, you're inherently special. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Is it part of Josh's thing on the gaze thing that it's like related to the mother-infant gaze? And so it's the realm of that specialness, that personal specialness. Is there a connection there?
Probably. In the way you're speaking about it, nothing's coming immediately, but the way I kind of think about it is like, let's say you thought you were worthless. Like you could still be exactly the same as you are, doing the same thing as you are, but it's like you wouldn't, potentially want to live anymore. There's a certain way that if you felt like you were just like a worthless trash person with all things being the same, you'd be like, what is fueling my life force now? and so I feel like that consideration is like what the heart types are really struggling with. Because, for example, if I'm a 2 and I'm not lovable, like why did 2s resist so much of themselves to uphold this self-image of being a love-worthy person, right? And it's like, if that image collapses, I don't even see a point of like being alive anymore. Like, I'm just a body that feeds on the, drains of the people's resources or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Is self-worth a good replacement, or does that hit at any impression that you're getting at?
Yeah, for sure. Self-worth is good, but it's like self-worth has a bit like dignity, which feels like a little bit more body center to me in a certain way. Like my uprightness and upholding, like there's a certain sense of like meaningfulness, or I've seen all 3 heart types have this kind of, I mean, I see it myself, like this kind of this is not the right word, but like religiosity, like a mystical imbuing, whatever. And I think all 3 heart fixes have their own version of imparting something with a kind of mystique, and it's got that sort of depth, something unnameable, special thing. And I think that if each of us individually doesn't have that like flame going in ourselves of it, there's a feeling of like, why am I existing? Like, what is the point of being alive? And I don't know how you guys feel, but that's my sense.
Isn't part of the, I don't know if you already said it, but like the contradiction or paradox is wanting that sense of specialness, but the neurotic personality does images to gain that. And so like they were just doing images. So they didn't actually get the value of the person underneath the image.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think that's a big part of it. But I think, Alexander could probably speak to how difficult it is for me to hold on to my sense of being a person with any sense of meaning, like to myself or others. How how it feels like it slips through my fingers, my sense of like I enjoy things, but like what, like why do I continue to exist? And so, so part of the image thing is like, I don't even know why I'm continuing to exist. Let me like hold this up to myself and be like, okay, this is why I continue to be like a valid person or something. But then that like doesn't feel satisfactory, and I'll have to put all my energy into keep reinforcing this picture. I'm special, or I'm valuable, or I'm lovable. And
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
You're saying,
Yeah.
pictures, and it feels like it's not hitting the core somehow or something because you did just do pictures.
Yeah, like it's like a struggle of moving from pictures and images to the integration of being. Something like that. It's like the image type might struggle with like the being as opposed to seeming, something like that.
Right.
And because the being is different than the body center being, which is just, like feels more like I'm just here.
Yeah. What's up. Yeah.
Whereas like, 3 imagery often has a lot of like solar images, right? Like there's a shine or there's a something. I mean, even like 4 imagery doesn't typically have that kind of stuff, but it's almost like lamenting the absence of that kind of light.
Sure.
It's still oriented to light in some way, even if it's the absence of light.
That light would mean the light of specialness. I can be seen, right, or something.
I mean, is my existence just kind of eating, shitting, fucking, and talking until I die, or is there some
like compass, yeah,
not even compass,
or
but just like
substance
of why I'm a person, you know what I mean? And I think that sense of substance is what the heart types are all looking for, because like, I mean, what is depth but like dimensionality of substance? And then value is like, oh, this is not just something to discard. And then like the lovability of a 2 is like, yeah, like, all right, maybe there's a million things in the trash pile, but like what makes you take that one out of the trash?
Right.
And so, yeah, there's this constant, so this is like, this sense is, people confuse heart type shame with like, I'm ashamed of myself, or I'm embarrassed socially, or something like that, or I feel inadequate socially. And I don't feel like those things really get at it. It's deeper, like just like our body type anger, just like head type anxiety. I'm a heart type. I feel anxiety. I'm not a head type, I feel anger. I'm not a body type.
Right.
But
Shame's been a thing for me throughout like childhood. Shame was big.
Yeah.
But it's not the same shame. You know what?
How would you contrast it?
Well, I think a lot of 9s experience shame, and it's probably why a lot of 9s mistype as 4s. But the reason 9s are a big reason for shame is that 9s are ashamed of taking up space, right? And tentative about being an individual with a solid, set of whatever human needs and so forth, and and a voice for that, not wanting to speak up about it. And so that's where you get kind of like the sneakiness of 9, right? Like I'm like wanting to grab my goodies because I'm ashamed to be a full congealed personality and an individual.
There is, I can't remember where I heard this. I think it was maybe on a podcast or something like that, but there was a discussion on shame that I was listening to not too long ago. And it described shame as the running into... Shame is the emotion you have when you run into your own limitations. It's when you run into, this is where I stop. This is where I stop being like an omnipotent, God thing, and I have to, and I realize my limitation of being human. That I cannot be, I don't know, like a God, I guess. And I do think that there is a way that each of the heart types has a certain ideal image of themselves. I know ideal is kind of attributed to 3, but 2 obviously has it. 4 obviously has an ideal. And so I wonder if part of it is that, shame comes when they can't have a pure embodiment of the ideal that they're trying to embody.
There's something there
for themselves.
But it's, it's not like, oh, John has the ideal image of being the most successful painter in the world. It's a little bit more like it's not like a how built up is my personality or not. It feels like an intrinsic sense of, if like if you think of envy, something is missing that I don't have, and I'm frustrated that there's something missing. And then vanity is like the replacement of my embodied value. And then pride is also this like false in like when you get at what what these things are trying to what they emulate, you know what I'm saying? Like vanity and pride especially are like a compensation for, like, I don't feel like it can really like value me, so I'm valuing the image, right? I'm like trying to make an image valuable. Pride is like, oh, I know it's in me already. It's like a shine, but it's like a compensation for the shine I should have, but I don't. And envy is also kind of this like frustration and rejection of things. Like nothing is actually related to me, in the way that I feel me is. So it's not about like some kind of not like being like a successful person or something, but there's like an inherent, it's that like that sun thing of like, is there a sun in me or not?
Yeah, but that's what I mean a little bit, is like when I say ideal, I don't mean ideal as in like the best, because that's a little too 3-ish. I think that would be a 3 ideal is to be like the model of whatever thing they're trying to embody. Whereas the 2 ideal would be like the essence of love or something like that. And the 4 ideal would be being original and being unique and being, all that kind
Singular.
of stuff. Yeah.
Part of my, like, like I've talked about jealousy, and like, so there's a thing of like, my constant insecurity is that I'm not like the special one, like it's, or like,
Right.
and I'm not special in like the special way that I want to be special. It's like this like super, does she see like my personal me versus, this other me in her head or something like that. It's like, it's always this like, I can't hold on to my own sense of special, so I need to find special in my sexual instinct connection. And without that, I feel like I don't, it's like I exist. Like, it's not like a 9 thing of like, am I here or not? It's just like, oh, I might as well be fucking dead. Like, I'm just like a fucking husk corpse zombie something or other that's just going through the motions.
Yeah. The embodiment of value is another way to say that too.
What do you mean?
Embodying the value instead of doing an image of the possible value or something like that.
Yeah, well, it makes me wonder if like the shame response comes from, I mean, I said like running into your own limitations earlier, so maybe this is a different way of saying the same thing, but just like recognizing like a distance between like where you're at presently versus the value you want to be representing, that kind of thing.
I think you said before, I think it's a Tom Condon thing. Confusing
really?
seeming with being.
Oh, I thought that was I thought that was a you thing. I got that from you.
Yeah. No, I stole it from him.
Okay. We'll say it's David Gray. Just kidding. Listeners.
I get a hit of shame whenever I get a hit of the image of what the things I've been doing seems like.
Yeah.
Like as a social blind, where it's like all of a sudden I see the image of myself.
I get that.
Well,
I get those a lot because of how crazy I've been in all kinds of venues. I get just huge like social. I'm framing it as social instinct, like tidal waves. It's just like, oh my god! I literally have to stop, just push it away because it's so horrifying. I can't even function.
Yeah, so I see that as those being like shame responses to being like out of alignment with value is kind of what I'm seeing it. It's just like, okay, if for ring 3 or for ring 5 is like the image of essential depth, the value of depth and individuality and, something substantial amidst the ordinary, blah, 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 then you seeing yourself suddenly with someone that doesn't embody that is like a hit on your own.
Yeah.
On your own image, your own sense of shame.
Even on a week-to-week basis, like if it's like a DAA episode or something, and I'm just like, this is just too basic or too normal, or this is like not that interesting, or I'll have episodes where I can't edit because I'm listening to it and I just don't feel like anything's just like shit like that, and I'll like have like shame response that my life isn't as interesting as I would want it to be, or I'm not doing anything that I think is anything, and it's, like that's.
Or I'm not doing anything that would be specially recognized for my singular talents or something.
I always think of it kind of like, like those like cartoons and shows of Japanese robots with the pilot inside, and you kind of like think that there's a real pilot inside you, like a real soul inside you, and then you find out like maybe there's no soul, there's no pilot, you're just like you're just doing something really that means nothing. It's just like your biology playing out with chemical reactions in the body, whatever, and there's nothing really of substance. There's nothing. It's just all basic, or it's all just meaningless. It's all just it's just the same backwash that everybody else is in, there's nothing happening inside. Like, maybe I'm like going to Egypt, but there's like nothing inside that is anything other than just like, there's nothing more. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's a flatness. It's like a fear of a certain flatness.
I mean, I have that a 4-ish thing that comes up just in the context of thinking about doing let's say, certain kinds of therapies, and it's going to be cathartic, and there's going to be tears and all of that stuff. But it's just like everybody has that, and everybody cries. And so it's like, I wanted, it needs to be something original, or else it's like, oh man, I'm going to do this and it's going to do this. Oh boy, no, come on. Yeah. Boring.
Should we get into the specific shame responses?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4. You want to start with 4 since we've got 3 of you on here?
We've been doing 4 for the last 10 minutes.
All right. Well, let's
Yeah.
get.
Well, I mean, Alexandra, I mean, you see it all the time.
I mean,
So how do you see it?
I see it as exactly that. I see it as like a, with you, I see it as like a, it's almost like you're, I mean, this is my interpretation. This is just like how I sense the heart. I see it as you'll have your shame responses when you like remember that like reality is just not an ideal, you know. It is kind of something like that where if like how do I say it?
Well,
I don't know. Like, go ahead.
I was going to say, if reality is shit, then there's nowhere to even be the special thing. You know, there's no. Does that make any sense? If the world is nothing, or existence is whatever, valueless, then there's nowhere to even be the special.
Well, for me, like I don't really have this feeling about reality needing, you know, to like. It's just more like, all right. So, for example, like I'm very identified with like my artwork and drawings, and you know the things that I'm calling upon in myself to have a creative vision. And sometimes there are times when it's like I'm like, whoa, like I'm breaching into something totally new or something like that. And then there's other times where I'm like, I'm just doing my fucking stupid doodles, and it's just like trivial child's entertainment. And so that's kind of like how I'll experience shame is like, I'm just like, I'm no different than like, you know, the cartoon Peanuts, you know, like Charlie Brown, you know, it's like, oh, this is just like, either this is something like actually like meaningful and getting to the edges of something, or this is just my delusion and it's all just Charlie Brown. You know what I'm saying?
It seems like with 4, there's well, it's almost like the fantasy piece is making the 4 radically distort. You know, it's like body dysmorphia almost, or whatever, dysphoria is that the word? Where I mean, like my 4 friend has stuff, and he's a sexual 4, has stuff that comes up around his looks or whatever, and it's, you know, it goes to the degree that he imagines himself looking like the Elephant Man and stuff like that. Yeah.
I mean, I relate. As Emiko was roasting at the Chicago Zone.
What was that? What happened there?
He was making fun of me in like a really funny way. It was like really got it.
The sexual 4 roasts.
Yeah, the Prince thing.
I wish I could have recorded that.
It was like what was it? You said you would be like,
It was, I'm so ugly. Do you fuck me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
but am I still sexy?
I'm made of shit. Am I
I'm
still
covered-
sexy or something? But it was like really funny the way he was doing
covered in excrement.
it. Yeah,
but,
I'm covered. Yeah, exactly.
I'm
think I'm
so
hot.
ugly, but this is a strange new beauty that you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you still want it? You know?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like emphasizing the ugliness, because it's like, then you're really into me if I'm covered in pus, but
Right.
you still think I'm sexy.
Right. Do you still think I'm sexy, special under all this pus and all? Like, am I still worth it under all this like disgustingness? And would you do this for anybody else? You know, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, my new way of kind of teasing John for the like sexual 4 stuff is saying that he's the the accursed man. He's just like an attractive man that's cursed to not know that he's hot.
That's good.
Right.
Right there.
Torture
Yeah,
and
that's it.
shame is like, I don't know, I'm hot.
Yeah.
The
That's
drama,
hilarious.
the
That's good.
despair.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's really good. Well, you've called it Phantom of the Opera. There's a little bit of that. Alexander.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't like. Yeah, there's it's like I can't hold on to something consistent about how I know myself.
Mm-hmm. For shame. I mean, I think it feels a little bit more louder, like observing Joseph.
Mm.
And he's said some things about just the image of if he's in a bookstore and he's standing next to the wrong books, that he all of a sudden imagines that someone might see him next to the wrong books, and he
Jeez.
feels this like shudder, and then he feels like he needs to do something about the image. Like his image stuff is a lot louder because he's social informing 3.
Mhm.
So there's a way that he's constantly curating these sort of impressions, like at fancy restaurants, and then he'll post like certain books and just like crafting this. These are the perceptions. But even just like recognizing that he needed to change the way he dressed because as he was getting older, it's like, I want to project more of an image of a provider. Shit like that. Just like he's very aware of how every piece, what it's saying about him. And it feels like if he'll have shame if once he gets a hit that someone might think that whatever whatever image that he's associating with is just stupid or basic or, just. So a lot of his sort of reactivity is around just like just pushing away from, I don't want to be associated with that. I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea about the kind of image he's trying to put out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It usually seems like a hindsight reaction too, from what I've
Mhm.
seen of 4. And maybe that's just like something that will be with all the heart types, because how would that work otherwise? But I see like a hindsight response with 4 is this like, oh, I thought I was in something original and deep and unique and creative, and it turned out to not be, or it turned out to just be like of the like common earth, something
Yeah.
like that. Especially as 4, if we're talking about heart types, then that is like pretty heavily associated with how you see things, right? The gaze that you're giving, the way that you hold gaze, the way that you value things. And so another thing that would stimulate 4 shame is also recognizing that your like view of something was wrong.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You thought something was interesting, but it's actually fucking stupid and basic and
There's that piece, and there's also, I mean, even as some of the things you just described with Joseph was like is much more social, like because I feel like I can kind of like go into almost any circumstance and not really care what other people think, but then I get very concerned with how Alexandra sees me, and values me, and so there's this thing of like, it's not just, there's both this thing of like, what does this mean about me? But there's also wanting those that you have created a connection with to value you in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Like my jealousy thing is like, do you think I'm special in the way I want you to feel I'm special? Right?
Mhm.
I mean, would you disagree, Alexander?
Nope.
Yeah, and then I get like I like feel like I can't hold my bearings and know how to know that in myself.
All right, 3 time.
3 shame.
The shame of 3. Oh, we should maybe we'll see. Maybe the reactions to shame too, like because we talked a little bit about like 7 reaction to fear
Oh, yeah,
and like 9 reaction to rage or whatever, or expression of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because actually, let's go back to it a little bit, because I do think that the 4 reaction to shame is rather not really, I wouldn't say very quiet.
Yeah. Well, it comes out in the form of just denigration. It feels like you have to push away the thing by ripping it to shreds. And so it almost, I think one aspect of this is, as a sexual type, that I've noticed is that there is some kind of sexual tension there in the thing that you hate, you love to hate. There is some kind of sexual charge there, to like have something that you have adequate frustration with, that you can denigrate to some degree. And that's a way to create some level of frustration. So yeah, that's the way I'm ashamed of this, and so therefore I'm going to denigrate it. I'm going to shit on it.
Mm-hmm. Man, sounds really
It's
nice.
a blast.
Yeah, really nice and fun.
What's
Very
that like
peaceful.
for you, Alexandra?
It's a great time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we already said it or you guys said it, but of course the frustration thing means you're picking at, stuff about yourself or whatever, or what's wrong with the why you're not getting it, or, an aesthetic critique about something and how it's mismatching you, and you want to keep picking at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Frustration wants more frustration.
Yeah, that is funny. Y'all do get super fussy when you're
Oh yeah.
all three of you.
Yeah, I want to have stuff to scratch at or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when you guys talk about something you're disgusted by, especially like something you have like experience with and have later been disgusted by, it's just like an open spark of just like hatred towards
Yeah, you want to keep going over it and finding more iterations of how wrong it was or bad or something.
To
And that's something-
exercise it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so dramatic.
And that's something I've just been trying to be mindful of, is like, just to catch, I'll get into a negative spiral and it will feel like it's endless, and to just like burn through it and see, okay, you're in a negative spiral. It's not necessarily this bad. I mean, there is some correction to back to neutral or somewhere leaning into disgust, but like I'll go all the way so far into disgust, and I just need to burn through that and come back, and so sometimes it seems like, oh, I just really hate this thing or hate this person, but I just need to actually just burn through the disgust and then come back. It's not that bad. It's terrible, but it's not. I just needed to go to the bottom and then come.
Yeah, isn't there something about 4 of confusing that disgust and disappointment or whatever with the entire reality of what the thing is?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, part of the 4 identity mechanism is trying to expunge, cast out as much that might be interfering with your experience of yourself, your ability to see your own identity and to hold your own identity. And so then something comes in that shouldn't have come in, and it's like, fuck that thing, like that thing might have ruined something or soiled something, or
Right.
like it's like did it, like, that precious kernel of what's uniquely mine, did it like ruin it? Did it fucking get in it? Like, am I a fucking basic bitch now, or whatever it might be?
Well, it's also, like say comparing 4 to 3 and 2, it's withdrawn in energy.
Mhm.
So it's small and anemic, and so the only weapon you have is criticism and that kind of thing, and hatred and disgust.
Mhm.
Disgust is a really strong response, so it kind of I don't know, mimics some personal power or something.
Something
Mhm.
that really stuck with me that I found really interesting was reading Almas and talking about rejection, like not rejection type or anything like that, but just this act of rejecting something. The most early basic experience we have of that is vomiting as babies.
Hmm.
And that
Mhm.
part of the reason that somebody rejecting you feels so painful is it because it feels like you were the vomited thing. And then, but in the case of the identity thing, it's like you are vomiting out the thing that is upsetting the tummy soul, or whatever.
Mhm,
It's like
mhm.
it's got that rejecting thing. It's like a full vomit, and it's got that same kind of
Oh yeah.
Associative quality of like, get the fuck out of me.
Mhm. So it is a force. Is that part of what you're saying? An
Yeah, and just
expulsive?
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's expulsive, and also just like kind of the total unease of something that leads you to vomit it out,
Mm-hmm.
and the sense of like, I don't know how you guys feel when you throw up, but like, I mean, I fucking hate throwing up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very violent. Like, it feels very violent just in my own body. And just like when you're like having a throw up but you can't throw up, and that feeling of just like
Ew.
something in some muscle inside, I don't even know what the fuck that is, but like you could really feel that move, and it's like there's so much force there. And so, I mean, if that's your that's like what is associated with like expelling something out of your identity, it's like it's got that quality.
Mm.
So I think that's like all the hatred, denigration, fuck this thing, frustration, it's like get out. It's like got that same quality.
All right, we spent enough time on
Yeah.
4.
3.
We were self-indulgent on 4. How surprising.
3, 3, 3, 3, 3.
3 shame. How do you experience 3 shame?
I mean, I do have like a sense, and it's hard to distill this from the rest of my type, but I do kind of have a sort of self-expectation that I should be able to meet any challenge I'm confronted with. And not only meet it, but like conquer it,
Mhm.
It's like every challenge that is put in front of me, any opportunity that I take on, I need to like defeat it, like David and Goliath.
It's athletic, muscular.
Yeah, and when I feel like I have failed that, and fail is just such a charged word that I just don't want to use it, but if I feel like I've maybe fallen short or it's defeated me, that produces a certain shame. Like I do have like even as a 9, I do have like a pretty innate belief that I can handle what's in front of me. If I'm going to take something on, then I'm taking it on because I know that I have the tools to execute it really well, to navigate it really well. And not just like get through the obstacle course, but like have been really good at it, like like excel at it in a certain way.
Excellence is like a thing that I associate with you in terms of what triggers your shame response or not.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. I feel like I'm like and that's how like dramatic it feels. Is like if I'm not excellent, then I'm subpar, and there's no point. There's like no reason for me to be here or participating or anything like that. Like if I didn't elicit some kind of, and this is like where the gaze thing comes in. If I didn't elicit a good response, good feedback, something like that, then yeah, it's a subpar feeling. And if excellence is like my ticket in, then not being excellent is what gets me cast out.
I think that something that, as you're speaking, that comes up between you and I when we get like triggered with each other is I will try to like reassure you of your specialness, and I think you'll feel like I'm not speaking to your excellence.
That is great.
That's
yes, because that's totally it. Sometimes I need to know that that it's like excellent. It's not necessarily the most special. It's not the most unique. I need to be like ideal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
like excellent. Not even, I wouldn't even say number 1.
The model of excellence or something.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't even say like the best is definitely a 3-ish kind of thing. And there's a certain way that that's like true, but it's like the best within my own
lane.
Yeah. Within my own ability. If I've done better and I don't do that well, I'm failing. If I've gotten this high and maybe like there's like something going on and I can only get this high the next time, I'm failing. That's what triggers it. So that's like what gets the sense of, sometimes it feels like being a 3 is like, I said this in the attachment support group about inner work, but it does feel applicable to 3 as well. It feels like climbing up a downward escalator. And that if I'm not climbing, if I'm not constantly doing that, then I'm falling. I'm losing it.
That gets at the constant doing also of 3.
Back to your comment about the downward escalator, I just remembered something that my dad told me before I went off to college. There was just a few things that he said that actually I remembered, but now I'm remembering it as this is a very three fixed point of view. But he said something to me. He said that if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And I don't necessarily, for whatever reason that stuck to me, but now that I'm remembering it, it feels like a very three fix, like you have to always beat the thing that you've done. Otherwise you're falling behind.
Yeah, totally.
Doing your drills, your reps.
Yeah. And it's also just like it's the downward escalator thing. Like even being stuck at a certain place for too long feels like, okay, down the escalator, like we got to climb, push, keep going. Let's move forward. Because if it's like, if I feel stuck in one place for too long, and it's not like a 7 kind of like restriction thing, but if it's like, if there's not like a forward trajectory, then I feel like I'm like losing something, like I'm losing some kind of like ability or like skill set or, the positive gaze or something like that.
One thing that I'm curious about, John was getting at,
Yeah,
Alexander, what are you looking for? What would be the ideal compliment versus what John is, he's framing it potentially from like a 4 fix. You're special. You're really one of a kind, or whatever it is that he's trying to frame. Like what is the 3 fix? If you had to translate it?
Our episode of couples therapy right here.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's as simple as, that's interesting. I'm not really even sure. But I think it's not so much the specialness or the way that I like bring something unique or something like that. It's like the value just in general. It's like I want to know like that I am valued. And this is not to say that John doesn't make me feel that way or anything like that, but it's
is it valued in comparison to some kind of standard, or like valued in what sense?
Valued, having a value that has a collective impact.
I get the sense of progression. And so there's a little bit of like, I am excelling at all these things kind of quality. And that's like, those are great, but that's not like kind of the main focus of my, like what I think to compliment you on. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Does that feel right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I think a lot of time, I do want like the attention for the performance in a certain way. And I don't mean performance isn't like a show or something like that, but like the output.
Right.
That's interesting.
Because it feels like with 4, it's not necessarily that you've earned anything. It's more that you are intrinsically special just by your being. From my point of view, just you are already something special, and that's the best compliment that I could give anyone. Whereas it feels like with 3 is that you're getting better, or there's some amount of effort that's being made that should be recognized. Like you're doing this really well,
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Because if I was to be told that, and John tells me stuff like that all the time. And I do have an internal sense of like, okay, that's great for like right now, but that's not a static. I can't hold on to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
And it's also a sense of like, okay, that's great that I'm like liked and appreciated as like a unique person and stuff like that. But like, I don't know, this is like where my 3 fix thing of like a special and unique person can still fail.
Mm-hmm.
They can still underperform.
Yes. Yeah, they can.
Fail at what?
Well, is it partly that it's, abstractly speaking, wanting to be recognized sort of on the stage in some way? I mean, it's kind of what you're saying, maybe with the performance or something.
I guess in a manner of speaking, I don't know that I would say on this. I'd have to get more texture on what you mean by on the stage, because it's not so much like a
recognized by the collective, or at least being of value to something that the collective could utilize or something.
It's something like that. It feels more like the output, like the doing. I
Yeah,
guess, and I guess that speaks
okay,
to like
right.
the assertive heart. It's not just like what I'm coming with, you know, just like the
Right.
colors I naturally have. It's like I need like attention and praise and love towards what I'm doing.
What I actually
And
did.
to not
yeah.
have that feels like I'm not getting it.
Right.
You know, it feels like I'm not valued.
It feels like the 4 sense of value is almost like the aesthetic choices that you make on a painting. So you're appreciating, wow, like those are really interesting choices that you've made. So it's expressive in a way. And with 3, it's like you've actually accomplished something, like your progression. It's not just like, oh, you're excellent. It's more like you actually have to earn the excellence.
Earning is totally how I feel. Yeah.
Yeah, where 2 and 4 have different ways that they're exempt from having to do, right? Or something. Like, I mean, 2s are doing, but I mean, there's still so much pride that you're not going to recognize them properly for how much they have done or something.
Yeah, and with 2, it's not necessarily like the doing itself doesn't feel like the thing. It feels like the product feels like the thing. You know, something like that. Like the offering feels like the thing.
Yeah.
Whereas with 3, it feels more action oriented.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like the result of the action, right? The embodied, like the results of the action. I guess this is like the athlete type of thing of like, look at the skills I've cultivated through my action. You know, look at what I'm like becoming because of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And anyway, so then a shame response comes from feeling like that effort is not good enough, either from an external sense or from an internal sense. Yeah. Or feeling like I just had the sort of like calibration almost. Like I didn't customize the output well enough.
Yeah, I feel like with 4, it's like special or shit. Right. But then 3 is like, it's hard for me to hold on to. It doesn't.
Well, it's like you can keep correcting, right? You can keep working the muscles, get stronger or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's also pulling from the collective. So that's where it's hard to find because the person there.
There's kind of like an external measure of better or worse, like in sense of an improving on some kind of continuum. So like there always has to be a better or worse. And so if you're improving or not, or if that improvement is being recognized, like the performance on this sort of continuum. And of course you can always get better, right? You can always improve if there's a standard, right? Whereas with 4, it feels like you don't necessarily have a standard on singularness. Like it's either it's one of a kind, or it's its own, it's expressing some singular thing, or it's not. And the more you can express a singular thing, it's not, what are you going to compare it to? The point is you can't compare it to anything.
Right.
Whereas 3 is like, it is a point of comparison. You have to be able to say, this is better than something else, or where I was before, even if just comparing you versus you.
Yes, totally.
So there has to be like, you're improving, you're more excellent than you've ever been, you're more beautiful than you were a year ago, you're more like this kind of like sense of progression.
That gets at one thing I see in 3s is quantifying.
Right.
Yeah, like Tom Cruise was on that Graham Norton show, and that Seth MacFarlane guy said something about doing impressions, celebrity, imitations and stuff. And Tom Cruise asked, "How many do you do?" You know, like he wanted to know the number.
No, that's so true though.
Yeah.
That's so true, because it's like, if it's just like someone tells me good job, I'm like, what compared to what?
Yeah, right.
I don't know where good falls on the scale. Good, better than last time, better than another person, better than I did, that kind of stuff. Good what? And the same goes with like matters of the actual heart. Like, I love you. Okay, how much? Like, what does that mean?
Right.
What is like that means so many different things to everybody else.
I love you a lot, but where is a lot?
Yeah, exactly.
Where is that on the scale?
Where's that in my spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Is it more or less than last
Spreadsheet, you
year?
need that.
Right. Like, you look nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Compared to when I look like shit, or compared to, like, you know what I mean? Like, I
Looking
need it
at
on the scale.
October year on year, like last October, where is he at? Yeah.
So, John, you got to give more specific compliments. Like, you look better than you did last week.
Yeah. God. Yeah, this is making me anxious. I'm like, how do I need like a romantic Fitbit or whatever those are. Those like
point
Apple
scale.
Watches.
You know, start low enough that she has room to grow. Like, you know, I love you at a 7.2.
Fuck you
And then,
guys.
you know,
You're 5% more beautiful than you were last year.
7.7 next month.
Like, wow, we're
Yeah,
reaching
I mean, 3
7.8
totally.
numbers today.
Hell,
Yeah, 3 totally does just like get off to like the carrot right in front, you know?
beyond.
It's just like, and that like totally is. I can't remember what actor. There was like some actor that gave his speech. I think it was maybe Matthew McConaughey or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. I think
Something
it
like
was.
that. But he was like, you got to keep chasing. The best for, you know, like a better version of me is always ahead. Da 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 da. You know, and that's like how it feels as a 3 heart in everything. And I mean
Mhm.
in everything. Like, I just started the YouTube thing. It's going to be better in the future. My relationship better in the future. Me as a person better in that constantly. There is better constantly in the future.
Yikes.
And I think something, and this is where like another thing can get triggered is like the idea of something just, okay,
Staying
so
where it's
3
at.
is 3. Yes. Well, not just staying where it's at, but just it
Stagnating
not
first.
being on a merit-based system.
Oh.
Not being on an earned-based system. Like you
Mhm.
guys said 2 and 4 is just like yes or no.
Mhm.
So 3 running into those kinds of like yes or no is like, what are you talking about? I'm an assertive attachment image. There is no yes
And
or no.
adaptive.
I'll make it. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So it's like anything can be adapted to and could be improved on.
And then, of course, there's the other end of 3 shame, which is realizing that they've been on this sort of athletic marathon towards a goal that was not theirs.
Yep.
Right.
You know, when you realize you've been chasing something that was somebody else's value and maybe it paid off, maybe it didn't, but still there is that hindsight vision. There's that like hindsight 2020 thing of just like, oh my God, I just worked my ass off for what?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like this wasn't even aligned with me.
Hmm.
So that's always another
Yeah,
big
that's part of how they're
shame
doing
point.
attachment adaptation is pulling from other, I don't know, societal cultural models
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
weighing themselves against that, or trying to excel past.
Yeah. And I do think this is more particular to 3 core than for 3-6. But just the idea of like needing that external point in order to know your identity at all. That's like another 3 shame thing. Is kind of like spending so much time working off other people's location that you realize you have like no idea where your center is.
Yeah, like one of my old arguments against David Bowie being a 3 is that when you look like on his website at the time, this is 10 or more years ago, it's like completely cutting down the idea of getting awards, and whatever awards he won, he's just like shitting on it kind of thing. Yeah. 3s are really awards centric or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What about 2? 2 shame.
I feel like 2's just denial of their shame.
Well,
Shameless.
I think it's not dissimilar to 4 in the sense that instead of am I special or not is like, am I worthy of love? And so is like love gonna flow toward me or not? Or is this real love or not? You know, it's like, is my campaign of love real or fake? You know?
Mhm.
And so then I'm loving not as like a 3 earning it kind of a thing, but it's like an expression of my being or whatever. But yeah, it's like this constant sort of struggle with like 2s to feel like they're love worthy, cut off parts of themselves, meaning they're making unconditional love conditional for themselves. So yeah, I don't see as that unrelated to 4 actually, but it's like a slightly different bent on it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't part of it like rejection types are all doing some kind of like super directed blowtorch something, right? And
Mhm.
twos are blowtorching love at you in because it's the love that they want back.
But they
I
don't
mean-
want it back. That's the thing.
Well, when it comes back, they don't want it because they don't have a receiving mechanism because it's all blowtorch.
Well, it's more like the receiving of the blowtorch is the
Is
love.
the love that they want back? Yes.
You're
Yeah.
right. Right.
saying
that's good.
saying
Yeah.
yes
Mhm.
to
Yeah,
the
that's good.
offering,
Yeah.
whether or not it actually helps you or you need it, is all the affirmation or validation that a two
Well-
fixer needs.
And it's kind of like the blowtorch, like phallic quality of that. They want the receptive, the gift receiver to acknowledge as much as they put out or something like that. It's like in some equal, that's the thing of wanting you can never give them enough appreciation or thanks.
Well, one aspect of it is that they do have a need for appreciation, but there's also kind of like at the same time that they're supplying their own validation, in that if you just even accepted the offering, that's all the validation that they need. It's almost like they will assume that you appreciate it as much as they want you to appreciate it. Like that's kind of like the forceful two-ness, like of that really worked for you. You know, I really, they were going to frame it as this thing that I just gave you. It must have really helped you. And I was like, yeah, well, actually, it's like, it's like, that's the really frustrating thing about, it's like the forcing of the validation that it did really have the intended effect.
You're saying, for example, like one example of what you're talking about would be like a two gives you some kind of validation, and you're like they're like, wow, you would make a great doctor, and they're kind of expecting it to be like their way of knowing that you love them would be to be like, wow, and from then on, I knew I could be a great doctor because they believed in me. Is that what you're kind of saying, like that kind of a thing?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that whether or not you give that response to the two, that they will try to impress that sort of impact on you, that they've had that impact.
One track. Kind
of. Like that's the thing that feels really phallic and so self-contained about the giving gaze, is that just by accepting their offering, they have already internalized the response that they want.
Right. That's good. That's good.
And and then the thing that I'm in conflict with is fighting the gaze or the response that they've already imposed on me, that they're imagining that I've already given them, regardless of what I'm saying.
Right. So they give you something and you're like, no, that's not actually how it hit me. It hit me this way. And they're like, no, it hit you the way yes. That's interesting.
I insist.
Yeah, in our support group with Josh, the attachment support group, we were towards the beginning of the series, we were describing all of the centers. And for the heart center, we described all three of the heart types as, we just personified them as performers on a stage. And the different responses to gaze was the performer getting off the stage and going into the audience, and how each heart type would respond to the audience responding to them. And so like a 4 was like, if there was negative feedback or positive feedback, it was still just like, you didn't get it, fuck you guys.
Right.
A 3 is like hyper attuned to and hyper affected by the positive and the negative feedback, just taking it in immediately. Oh my god, they think I did amazing. Oh my god, they think I sucked. A 2 comes off of a stage, whether if it's like a song or a speech or something like that, comes off the stage, walks through the audience saying you're welcome to everyone.
Knowing that they did well, whether
you're
they
welcome.
did or not.
Yes, and if somebody can't receive that, there is the assumption that something must be wrong with that person's
Yes.
ability to receive
That's
their love.
exactly what it is.
They must be handicapped, so
Right.
They must
that's another
something
thing I
like
need
bless their
to
heart.
help
They
them
need
with.
me more than ever.
Bless their
Yes.
heart.
Alexander.
My mom would always say stuff like, "When you get older, you will understand how
No,
much
my
I-"
mom says that all the fucking time, and I'm older and I don't get it.
Right.
You should share just like an example of the guy you work with.
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, there's a guy that I work with who I believe is a 2. I believe he's 2 and 3 with a 7 fix and a 1 fix, and I think he's social self-pres. He's a lot.
That's a lot.
Double hexad positive is already too much for me anywhere. So yeah, to have 2 and 7 up front with a 1 fix and social self-pres is just a lot. And today I walked into the kitchen to get coffee and he was in there, and it was just, that's always a risky thing to do because you just never know if he's going to trap you or not. But he did. He trapped me today. And we got into this discussion of like the state of the world and how people are mean. And somehow, as usual, he like commandeered the conversation to talk about how he was on the subway recently and he saw like fruit cart lady that like sells like cups of fruit. She passed a homeless woman and gave a cup of fruit to this homeless woman and like gave her a fork and gave her a napkin and just kept going along. And this coworker was so touched and so moved by that he followed the cart lady to tell her, "You did an amazing thing. You changed that woman's whole day. Da 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 da. How much is the fruit cup? I'm going to pay you for you buying that woman's da da da." And then he kept going on to me, telling me how he made this woman's day.
He
And it's
inserted
just-
himself
Story.
into a
Beautiful.
whole other situation.
Completely. He just asserted meaning, and that's kind of an interesting thing. He kind of just like imposed meaning onto the woman who gave away the fruit cup, and then from his own meaning onto that woman.
It's almost competitive. Who cares the most, helps the most, or is seen as caring and helping.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody else got the recognition, then the two has to up it or equal it or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or at least be able to view it with more passion and reverence.
Yeah, I mean, that connects to what I was speaking to at the beginning about that sense of like, on one hand, there's this contradictory sense of innate like meaning, preciousness. I keep using precious because it has that kind of quality with like, like even like a baby, right? Of like protected at all costs, and it's fragile, and it really is like intrinsically something there. But at the same time, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's not precious at all. Maybe I'm upholding this whole zombie corpse thing that, it's like having a baby and it's like, this is my special baby. Or it's like, maybe I was delusional and the baby is actually like a paper doll that I was deluded about or something. It's like the life force is either in it or out of it. And I think all the heart types are all the heart fixes are like, they're trying to maintain that this has some substance to it, kind of a thing. And I think just the type patterns are ways of reinforcing the substantiality.
There might be, let's see, a mistrust based, staying in abstract land. Because if you're talking mother-infant, is mother just making me feel special because I came from her?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, my experience, like that's something that I resonate with a lot. And I was talking to my friend Amara, and she was talking about her experience of like interacting with my parents, and they were like, wow, they just really don't get you. Like they somehow abstractly understand that you have some kind of specialness or value or something, but they don't know what's actually like, there's not a connect to what's actually here. And so there's this thing of feeling like, is what you brought to me because I'm me, or because I'm an extension of your universe or something like that? And that's the big kind of conflict there.
So what is the 2 reaction to shame? It's almost like a denial of shame.
I mean, it's kind of wild because I've seen some 2 reactions not to core, but even just to fix reactions, going right to like rage almost.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, it's
Going
got that
right to
line
just
to
like a
8.
how fucking dare, and it's like a hexad image, so it's absolutely not taking in any external feedback in a certain way.
Mhm.
And so it's just like, and it's a super ego image also. So it kind of just purely goes to how dare you make me feel like that, like how dare you?
Yeah. It's very shaming, very super
Shaming.
ego, but it's attacking. It's
Right.
like
It's
you
yeah.
as the object of whatever have defiled something. Fuck you.
Well, yeah, I had somebody that I worked with who was a 2, who got angry at somebody else that we were working with, and he said, the 2 said, I'm going to go Old Testament on this guy, right? Like as in wrath of God, and that brings in the superego thing and the 8, right? It's like because I'm justified, so here comes the full gut
Yes.
rage from God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to fix wrath, it's interesting to call it wrath, but it's like that's just how it feels to me.
Well, it's 8,
Mhm.
so yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's their iteration.
It just, and justified is just totally the correct word.
Absolutely.
The 2 fixers I've seen that just like blow up so inappropriately on other people just feel fully justified in it, which is so interesting because it goes so against this like I'm an angel
Right.
image.
Fuck that image. They're not angels. Well, because it shows up as like if you burst through the bubble of, hey, actually, the way that you've been acting towards me either felt manipulative or something negative.
Self-interested.
Yeah.
Self-absorbed, yeah.
That
Self-interested,
is a huge affront to the 2-fix ego. And so that gets turned around on like, as like, oh, you're ungrateful. It's never like, oh, something's wrong with the way I handle things. It's like, that's a really fucked up thing to say to someone. Maybe you've had trauma, maybe, you've experienced other people, but to think that I would do something like that, it's just the ability to actually hold on to any sort of negative gaze or negative feedback is
Judgment.
really fucking damn near impossible for 2-fixers.
I don't,
yeah, so true.
I don't know your experience, like Emeka, with your mom, but like mine, there were times when that thing would break and it would be like, devastating, valueless, nothing, kind of like that bubble would burst and it would be the opposite extreme of like, total empty self-hatred,
Yeah.
shame attack.
Too.
Histrionic victimhood or something? Is it?
Isn't your mom 261?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, mine's 278, so I don't think I ever saw that.
Yeah. No, I would see that occasionally where it would be like this shame on you kind of a thing, and then it would sort of burst, and there'd be this like line to 4 kind of like despair, like dark despair kind of a thing.
What did it include? Like sort of being a victim somehow?
Oh
or-
yeah.
Yeah,
I did get the
martyr,
victim and stuff.
right?
Yeah, the martyr
Martyr
stuff
is
she
good,
would go
yeah.
to.
And
at
martyr
some
again
point.
pings the religious theme, right? Angel, saint, martyr,
Totally.
or wrath of God.
Right.
Yeah, that's the other, because my mom does that sometimes too, where she'll either get like super angry that I like dared view her as less than angelic and benevolent Mother Teresa, or she will kind of go that victim mode of just like, oh, I'm just not worthy of love. This kind of, my mom's a 9 too, so that colors it a little differently, but she will kind of, I have seen 2-fixers kind of have that response of just like, oh my God, they become like really kind of intentionally small in a certain way.
Yeah.
Like there's like an image of like small little puppy. I didn't mean, I think I'm such a bad person, but even still, there's like not an acknowledgement.
Right.
There's not an ownership
It's
or
almost
an
like a
accountability.
theater instead of the real. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, can be really annoying to me.
Yeah, I mean, my mom's like apologized to me like twice.
Wow.
Yeah. My mom has apologized to me, but it has always been for like way stuff in the past, and it is almost never about like how she behaved during it has never been about something I've given her feedback about. Like my feedback, it just doesn't enter her mind. It's always like things she came to on her own.
Do you think she's secondary to Fix or
Yeah.
is it 9? No, that's
Yeah, I think she's 927. Yeah.
Anyway, you've been going for a while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is good though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was good too.
All right.
Okay.
Bye,
See you guys.
guys.
Okay, later. Bye.
أشوفك شيء وأنت شيء آخر حبيبي جل من صور جمالك أشوف الكون في عيونك مناظر وأشوف الليل يسبح في خيالك أشوفك شيء وأنت شيء آخر حبيبي جل من صور جمالك أشوف الكون في عيونك مناظر وأشوف الليل يسبح في خيالك سحر طيفك به استوحى الخواطر